Okay, I got an interview email with some questions here, so I'm going to run through them. I don't generally read through them beforehand because I like to kind of give my spontaneous reactions to them rather than kind of try to think through them. I find that I muddle myself when I try to do that. So I'm just going to read them and go from here. So the first question, what provokes human interest in biohacking, in your opinion? Actually, that's a really, it's not a common question, and I like it because it's touching more on philosophy and motivation and psychology and not just kind of like the standard kind of questions. But what provokes human interest in biohacking? Well, I think the problem with that question is that it's not biohacking. What am I trying to say? Maybe I should have read through these beforehand. So biohacking is not the impetus behind human curiosity and the desire to improve our capabilities. I think that's what I'm getting at, is that those are innate qualities of humanity. So humans are curious, humans are not satisfied. So our dissatisfaction with our limitations um, and our kind of deep-seated inherent joy in figuring out a solution. I think this is why um, people the first humans picked up rocks and sticks. We could cognitively understand that a stick increases our range and our ability to inflict force on another object, be it like a nail, like a hammer and a nail, or it could be another person, or whatever. Food that you're hunting. Um, just the idea that you know biohacking or really any technological development is interesting because it satisfies our curiosity. We're curious, can this be done? How would we do that? Would it be possible to fly? Could I build a machine to be able to fly? Could I build, could there be some solution to a problem that I'm experiencing? That kind of thing. So, adversity is a mother of invention, or however you want to, craft that that cliche saying. But it's true. Like when we're not satisfied with something and we want to figure out a solution to it. Uh, the idea that humans want to go better, faster, harder, stronger, that is innate in our makeup, and that is what drives, human interest in biohacking, but also like everything else. Um, Number two, what made you personally insert a microchip? How does a microchip change your own life? Well, there's, I guess, necessity is the mother of all invention. That's the saying. But um, yeah, laziness. I mean, at the surface level, it could be laziness, but basically, I was trying to get in and out of an office door in 2005, and I had you know a door that just would lock on me. It was an emergency exit door. It wasn't meant for normal egress ingress kind of stuff, and so I would go out the door, it would lock, and then I would have forgotten my keys, and that's fine during the day, but when it's 2 a.m. and I'm working on a server project or something, because it was an IT office, then that's a problem. So I wanted the door to just know that it was me and let me in. Um, you know, Technologies like biometrics, eye scanning, that kind of stuff. That's just not, it wasn't then, and it's still not very robust, particularly for outdoor applications. And it's expensive and clunky, and I didn't like it. So, badges where you tap them, that was great. I just didn't want the card. That's RFID technology. So, looked at animals getting, dogs and cats getting chips, and I said, that's the same thing. So, boop ba. I've covered this particular question a lot in previous interviews and stuff, so you can go there. But basically, in the end, I was like, that's the technology I want to use. I just don't want to carry the card. I'll put a chip in. Um, the chip itself, the microchip has changed my life in terms of immediately I stopped using my keys. I updated my house and car and that kind of thing. So for the 16 years, I haven't really had to carry keys around. Occasionally, I encounter a thing that I need a key for, but that's been a huge relief in terms of the burden of managing all these tokens of my identity that work with various systems, doors, locks, things like that. Um, on a more commercial level, or financial global media level, just doing that simple thing, which I didn't think two two thoughts about it. I thought, yeah, of course, this makes sense. I'll do it. But then, of course, like people got wind of it. I got put on blogs. I got interview requests. I ended up being asked to write a book about RFID technology, and so what I thought was a very simple, common sense idea, which is put the chip in my hand, then I don't have to carry anything. That changed my life significantly, more than the actual chip's utility has. Um, and now we're at 2021. Dangerous Things has been designing, manufacturing, and selling these things since 2013. VivoKey was launched in 2018 to try to make high cryptographic solutions, technological solutions with NFC transponders, and that's been very a difficult road. But I think we have the team now and we got through the pandemic and everything, and we can start actually making these things a reality that we want to do on the VivoKey side. So in terms of running a business and supporting my family with this whole thing. I mean, I've been doing Dangerous Things full time um, for many years now. So, and it's been through the customers and purchasing the products and the amazing community that's come together around Dangerous Things and biohacking and kind of our little corner of the biohacking world. It's changed my life significantly, completely, and that's just been amazing. Um, Number three, which measures of cybersecurity should be taken by people with microchips inserted in their bodies? Is there any possibility for cyber criminals to hack the system? I think this question belies an innate misunderstanding about the technology, or just maybe a lack of understanding. Um, that's a very open-ended and very broad question. There is no system. I think that's probably, with the exception of VivoKey. VivoKey does have an identity platform that uses the chip as an authentication token for that platform. And that platform, being a platform on the web and in the cloud, has all the normal standard security risks. So, we have to make sure our stuff's constantly updated. The firewalls are working. The banning, IP banning and, probe attack and all of that kind of normal cybersecurity stuff applies to that platform. But the chips themselves, that's a very difficult, well, it's not difficult. It's just a very kind of like, it's too broad of a question because there's chips that are designed that have no security. So the the hack, you're not going to hack the chip. You get what I'm saying? Like the chip is not vulnerable to hacking because it's not changeable. It's like hacking a QR code. How do you hack a QR code? Well, I guess you could physically change a QR code, but the point being that like the chip's function is laser lithographied into silicon and you can't change it. So there's no hacking it in that way, but you can um, for these chips, it's very common, particularly for like work badges and things like that, or very low cost legacy style access control systems for like apartment buildings or whatever. Those chips they choose because they're very cheap. There's no security. There's a very simple way to interact with the systems in those buildings or whatever. And so a hack could be that we just read the ID off the chip and then either emulate that with some active electronics, so we pretend to be that chip, but you're not hacking the chip per se, you're just pretending to be it. So it's kind of like a hack, I guess, of the access control system. Or you can clone or just take another chip that's either blank or able to emulate that type of source chip and ID. There is such a chip, we use it heavily. It's called the T5577. It's in a lot of our low frequency 125 kilohertz products. And it's specifically designed to do this. And so, you can clone it into there, and then you made a copy of your key. Um, copy of your key kind of being like referencing old, metal keys. But the point being that that's the idea people have in their head is that the implant is some kind of massive computer system that can interact with your brain and GPS track you and like control your thoughts. I mean, these are all real things people think because they just don't understand what it is or how it works. And so when you say hack the system, I just want to be very clear that that can be mean different things to different people along the spectrum of products and spectrum of technologies. So it's kind of not easy to answer because there's like 100 answers. It's basically what I'm getting at. So um, when it comes to chips, you're not really going to hack the chip. That's the point. You might be able to hack the systems the chip interacts with, depending on the level of security and things, but in general, no security chips are easy to hack those systems they're used with, which is why in the personal use context, it's been brought up, but it's not really a concern because security in a personal use context means that, let's say you're using it for your computer, your house, your car, your door. They're all personal things in your personal space, and the chip ID itself is what's used in typically to access those things and services and things. But those are all in your local, geographic, personal periphery. So in order to attack those systems, the attacker has to be in your also personal space periphery, and it's not likely, right? Like the kinds of attacks we like to think about when we're thinking about these things is like on the web or like on the internet. So it's like a random attack, or it's a distanced attack from somebody who's hacking into your email account or something from Russia, or like it's not somebody like the point is, if somebody wanted to get into your house, they would have to know who you are and then go to your hand and then copy the ID off of that chip and then go back to your house and then get into your house specifically. So people that are, like maybe scanning for random RFID tag IDs or something in the wild, these attackers are random. They don't know who you are or what that ID number they might have sniffed while you pass by even does or is or anything. So they have no context. It's like finding just a random number printed on paper sitting on the ground. What do you do with that? Who knows, right? But if you find, for example, a credit card on the ground, you don't need to know anything about the victim. You can just pick that up and start spending money. That's the problem. And that's the kind of problem that VivoKey is trying to solve through the cryptographically proofed chips. So the chips perform cryptography. You get an authenticity check by challenging them. They respond. You check that response and you're talking to the chip. Those kind of chips, those high security chips, can be used for applications like that, securing web services, because the attacks come from the entire world, right? And they don't know anything about you. They're just trying to get into that system. So the chip prevents that kind of thing through a cryptographic challenge. Um, these kinds of use scopes and contexts are important when you're talking about security and the measures that you should go through in order to secure whatever it is you're doing. So anyway, that's that's kind of the point. So number 4, you built the first commercially successful implantable NFC transponder. Actually, it was the first implantable NFC transponder. It wasn't just a commercial success, it was the only one that ever existed, which is why it was difficult. So the next part of the question, how difficult was it? Which problems did you manage to solve then on the way to commercial success? What kinds of objections have you heard from others? So that's a very multifaceted question. Um, so yeah, the XNT was crowdfunded. And when I started Dangerous Things, the very first thing we did was order a bunch of low frequency 125 kilohertz transponders from a bunch of different factories. And we put them through a bunch of tests. And there were some that failed horribly. The glass was incredibly thin or brittle or weak. It wasn't the proper glass they claimed it was. There were impurities in the glass. The bioresins were toxic, or the resins they used to secure everything inside were toxic. They were not biocompatible resins. Just a multitude of problems. So, but we did narrow down a couple factories that were using the proper glass, the glass that they claimed, and was gas spectrometry tested to be the correct stuff. And so we did a bunch of that testing and then started selling these sourced, devices that were built by turnkey vendors. But the problem with turnkey is that you're just buying a finished product that has no real guarantee of quality and no real guarantee that the materials used it won't change even in the middle of a lot cycle. I mean, it's not, they don't build these things by lot. They build them just kind of in a constant flow and throw whatever they can find into these products that are being made. Oh, we ran out of that glass, get this glass over here, throw it in. It just changes. So the idea that you can build a safe implantable business using turnkey products that you just buy or source is ridiculous. You just can't do it just because of the nature of turnkey production as a business. It just, you can't rely on it because you might order, let's say you order 1,000 of these things and you test 10 of them, pull out 10. Well, it's meaningless because the entire thing is like it could change materials 20 times through that whole run. You wouldn't know, and you would have to like destructively test every single one of them, which destroys all your products. So the point is that we started that way, and then we realized, well, NFC is becoming ubiquitous through smartphones, and it was just at the beginning. So like Android phones had NFC, but not all of them. It was like a few key, top of the pile dogs there that had it, but it was becoming a thing, and like everybody's wondering when will Apple do it, and it took them a decade. But anyway, uh, the point is that we got to uh, this idea that we can make this NFC transponder, which operates at 13.56 megahertz, which is way higher than the typical implantable transponders at 125 kilohertz. We ran into problems getting people to even try it. So we started getting factories on board, assembly factories that we could use as contract assemblers, and that's not turnkey. So we'd have to buy our own materials, bond that in a little warehouse, and then have them do the assembly, so that we knew we were controlling the actual materials. One second, got a little ugh in my throat. Um, so anyway, the point was that we ran into factories saying, no, we're not going to try that. We're not going to do it. And in those early days, we were getting some engineering support for the antennas in particular, because it was very difficult to communicate that to some of the existing vendors that would make these windings. And so we just kind of bounced around just trying to get the parts made. Just saying, yeah, we need to get these made, and they said, well, we could, being this kind of startup and in a very niche market where you're dealing with the ultra low quantities. That's the challenge, because you can get a company or a vendor or an engineer or whatever to say, yeah, we could do that for you for either this huge price, NRE, which is non-recurring engineering charge, or a huge NRE, and also we need you to order, 5 million units in the next year. And we're like, I'm not going to do that. How many do you need? So we'd say, I don't know, maybe like we'll order 1,000, see if that works. Like maybe we can sell those in the first couple of years, because I mean, especially early on, we just didn't know what the volumes would be. So that was a very big challenge, and it continues to be a challenge today. So when we try to do anything new or interesting, we have to like deal with this quantity issue of like, well, do we have the money to invest in a huge amount of quantity that would be required to get them interested to do it? So like even just buying silicon die off of bare wafers or something is a pain and very expensive. So you're investing a ton of money in that, if you can't find an alternative to buy maybe just a few of them, like, and a few being, many thousands of units, but that's a few to these industries deal in, million plus units a year kind of quantities. So um, those were all very difficult challenges to overcome, and as I said, continue to try to overcome those in certain areas. Um, of course, we solved those problems, and then um, we ran the campaign, and the campaign made more than I think almost 4 times the goal, which really kind of opened my eyes to the idea, like, okay, this is a thing. This is going to go somewhere. I think this is going to be interesting. And so we immediately started putting that money into buying our own products. Well, not the products, but buying our own materials to make the products, and then doing that assembly versus turnkey, and moving everything into that arena, because we wanted to ensure that we could spot test our lots and be confident that the assembly process was accurate, and we take those tests and apply them to the lot, which again you can't do with turnkey. So anyway, it was a very interesting um, challenge to get up and running, and now the challenge is to continue to keep innovating new things, and to keep ensuring that we can deliver on our promises. That's become the very hard thing. In fact, one of the most annoying things, I put this, you can see the scar, which is recently I had removed this device, but I had a device here, and the idea was that it would be there for 30 days, and then I would take it out, and then we would have a production version coming very soon, and we could replace it or whatever. But it took 4 years to get to the point, 4.5 almost at this point, and I've just now gotten. I mean, we're still trying to fight these last little minute, uh, barriers and hurdles to getting this product done and out. But so some things take a very long time. Um, the last part of this question, what kind of objections have you heard from others? That's a whole different kind of question, actually. Basically, objections to implants in general range from it's the devil's work, you're burning in hell, the government's tracking us, you're a terrible person, you know, whatever. Like just you name it. It's just ridiculous. And I don't know, there's not really, I don't want to spend much time on those people. Number five, your idea is to turn a person into cyborg. You even sell special kits for this purpose. How could the future look with a lot of people transforming into cyborgs? I think that's probably, uh, I wouldn't say that's accurate. I don't want to turn people into cyborgs. I just want to improve people's capabilities, augment their capabilities. And my my area of specialty and expertise or whatever at this point is through doing that through implantable devices. But it's not necessarily limited to that. I would want the ability to edit my genome freely, like this kind of thing, or interact with my neurons in my brain and link that to, digital neurons or and then, communicate over networks, that kind of stuff. But there's other companies and other people doing that. So, and I'm confident in their abilities to do that. So I'm not I don't need to become an expert in doing that. It's not a thing that I need to do. Um, I just need to work on stuff that is easily installable and adds to your human capabilities. Um, and I think that's the goal. It's always the goal is to improve our capabilities as human beings. And throughout history, that improvement has pretty much been through external means. So you fly in an airplane, you communicate with other humans around the world on the internet. You pick up your smartphone and you're a god. But none of those things are part of your intrinsic capabilities. And the difference, I think, is when you have a well-designed implantable device that requires no management, it's kind of frictionless, and it goes in there and does its job, and you don't need to maintain it or worry about it. It becomes part of you in a way that psychologically and philosophically, an external tool just can't. And so I like that idea, and I like the experience of being able to use I think I have like 7 devices now, to be able to use those with various systems and things that, in some of the systems are things that I built or hacked together or made work, in a way that they weren't designed to work, but now they do because I have a reason to do that. So like I can open my garage door from outside. Sure, there's a pin code panel thing, and you got to make sure there's batteries in that, and hide it from your neighbors when you put the number in, and there's other issues related to that. Um, but now I just walk up and go boop, and brrr, the door starts to open. I go boop on my front door, and it's unlocked. If I'm carrying things, I don't need to like go, hold on, I got to push these numbers in while I'm holding, or whatever. It's fundamentally different. Experience to do that. And so, yeah, I think that a future where the focus of this is kind of the focus is like a freedom, the ability to do things based on your capabilities and to do them effortlessly, frictionlessly, as easy as possible. These kind of things are about um, at the base level about the freedom to be able to do that, to interact with the world around you, and to move through it with minimal hurdles, minimal frustrations with frictionless ease. That kind of idea where you can have a door that is secure but still super convenient to open. Like usually you see convenience and security being at opposite ends. If it's very secure, it's not convenient. If it's convenient, it's not very secure. So to be able to have a chip implant come into the mix and break that relationship to make it secure and convenient, you could have a massive security door, but if all you have to do is grab the handle to open it and it reads and it securely unlocks and you just open the door, none of that security apparatus has gotten in your way. Whereas normally it would, right? Under normal circumstances, you have to have a massive key or some sort of thing that you do to unsecure the thing, and then you can use the thing. If you can make that all part of the experience, un, you know, disabling that security so you can use the thing and then it's re-enabled automatically. You don't have to do anything. That whole experience of being able to freely move through that secured system is the goal. And that I envision that to be not just physical, in the physical space of being able to move through secure doors or anything, but also in the digital space, being able to move through different services and sites with minimal frustration but maximum security. So, like the two-factor authentication codes that are in use now are a pain. they're secure, but you have to stop and you have to generate some codes on your phone, and then you copy the numbers or you get an SMS or anything. So all these methodologies are just a super pain in the ass, and they're just um, not fun. And so this is why people don't enable them. They don't want to be uh, burdened with more hurdles or things in front of them, challenges in front of them, and they have to overcome just to do the thing they want to do. And so I think a chip implant has a massive ability to be able to solve that problem, because it's not a thing you manage, not a token you manage. It's part of you, which it's always there, it's always available, it's frictionless, easy to use. Those are the key things about what makes a chip implant fundamentally different from an external tool. Um, Number 6, you have established 2 highly successful brands. Your Things and VivoKey. Did you face opposition from people conservative attitudes for biohacking once started the brands? Which measures have you implemented to promote your ideas among the target audience? Um, yeah, as I said before, yeah, there's plenty of people with opposition, and I think the big issue is that they're basing all of their opposition, uh, which could be categorized into fear, anger, confusion, ignorance, all of those things, is based on not really understanding the technology, making assumptions like they're putting COVID, microchips in the COVID vaccines, and like they're going to track you around. Like the whole idea of what they think a chip implant is about and can do is just wrong. And so if a chip implant could do the things that they are afraid of it doing, like track people around and stuff, sure, there'd be concerns, but it's purely from a lack of understanding. I think in general, a general distaste for science and knowledge and intelligence in general, that we've seen a huge decline in people being actually interested in the truth of like discerning truth through scientific method, discerning how the universe works, the curiosity of how things work, wanting to know more about things, and just kind of receding into more fear and outrage in general. I mean, it's politics, policy, technology development, all these things have been, affected by this kind of general regression away from enlightenment and science. And so you got this, right? You got these people primed to not want to learn, but want to be outraged. And then over on the other side, you've got just a general sustained misinformation campaign from Hollywood movie tropes and story tropes. Like every movie you've ever seen, every TV show that mentions a chip implant of any kind, it's a tracking device. It's a remote, I'm going to kill you remotely device. It's a, I can control your thoughts device. It's always bad for the person with the implant. And so that being the only real education the mass public has ever had about what a chip implant is or can do, I don't really blame people for being cautious, but I do think they're um, not fulfilling their human potential because they choose to just drive down that road of fear and misunderstanding. They don't have any curiosity. They don't think, oh, I wonder what these chip implants are really about, or how do they really work? Nobody's really curious about that, and they don't want to learn about things. They just want to say you're evil and what you're doing is evil, and I want to kill you. And so yes, I have gotten a ton of death threats from 2005 on. And then when I built my smart gun project, then there were more threats from a whole different group of people. So opposition, yes, I've had plenty of that. Um, but there are people obviously that think it's interesting enough that, or they're not the amount of fear and aggression toward things they fear is low enough that they do learn about things. And I have talked to a lot of people that initially came at me pretty aggressively. And then once they learned how it all worked and whatever, they didn't buy any, they didn't want to get it, but they still weren't, they were like, oh, okay, well, this isn't as bad as I thought it might be. Um, so I still have hope for humanity, but holy crap, just the sheer. I don't mind you being ignorant of a subject, but not wanting to learn about it, and instead just being angry and literally trying to be aggressive about it. That's you've lost your humanity, in my opinion. You're a dumb ape, and you need to evolve your mind a bit. Like, be curious, be a human being about something, and if you're afraid of it, how do we fight fear? We learn about that thing. That's how you understand if your fear is warranted all right? And but there's a lot of people that don't do that. So um, yeah. Anyway, I just need to move on. What are, what are you currently working on in the dreams and targets? I can't say what I'm working on because now it's a business, and there are others that want to work on things that we want to work on. So, not really going to answer that question, but uh, dreams or targets aiming at achieving. I don't know. I can say that I really am looking forward to the Neuralink reaching an amount or level of security and functionality that I would be interested in getting one. Currently, it's a little disconcerting, I think, because of the way the security mechanisms are implemented, at least what little I've heard about security being addressed. But I fear that it's like any other kind of device or anything where you make the cool thing first and then deal with security later. But that really, really should not be the case when a device is talking directly to your brain. That's a big deal. So I'm hoping that they're taking security seriously, and I mean very seriously, and it'd be great if they were. And then yeah, I'd be interested in playing around with that and seeing if they have a developer mode that you can implement some of your own experiments and stuff like that. I mean, this is being able to interact with your neurons directly in a way that, like, I'd be curious. Uh, for example, we have like an implantable magnet. You put the magnet in an area of dense tactile nerve tissue, and then when the magnet vibrates, when you encounter a magnetic field or trying to, it'll move very slightly, and that will activate your tactile neurons, and your brain will receive that. And over time, very short amount of time, like 2 weeks typically, brain plasticity will dictate that that sensation will mean something different to your brain. And so you've hijacked that particular mapped location of tactile nerves to mean something different about the environment that you're in. And that is very interesting to me, but it's still hijacking a sense and repurposing it. So like setting an alarm clock that wakes you up, or an alert on your phone that bring, you know what that means because you've hijacked the hearing sense to impart different kinds of information. You don't care about the audio that you've just received, you care what that audio means. And so just in the same way, the magnet generates this sensation. You care what that means, not the sensation itself. It means that there's some magnetic force at work, and you can, you know, internalize that in your cognition. But to be able to introduce new ideas and signals and patterns into your mind that might literally give you a sixth sense. I mean, we talk about the magnet being a sixth sense, but it's hijacking one of your five senses to impart new information as a sixth sense. But the idea of being able to actually put new information in, um, that directly, so you're not hijacking a sense. It's like the idea of saying, if you've ever seen, like, go online and Google infrared photography, and you'll see all these photos and they're amazing and they're infrared, but you're not seeing infrared because you can't see infrared. You're seeing what an interpretation of that might look like. There's no way to see infrared yourself. This is the point. And so I think it'd be very interesting to be able to um, impart that information directly, bypass the sensory items that are putting the sense data into our brains, and getting new senses, new information directly put in the brain so that we can interpret it in a new way that's in an extension of our innate senses. That's super, super interesting to me. But one of many possible things that might happen in the future. So anyway, I think I've rambled on long enough, but yeah, let me know if there's any more questions, and yeah, hope this worked out for you.